Continue to say we need help.
The mayor now wants to cut $500 million education
Y'all
in order
made it
to deal with the
along.
influx of illegal immigrants.
Dummy.
Ariane Pastar, NTD News.
That they want a better split of the fares. And they're, you can see it's really loud out here because there's so many drivers that have gathered here. Earlier today there was maybe a couple dozen. Now it seems to be around 100 drivers, if not more, that have all shut their apps off and are standing here in solidarity trying to get the rideshare companies to notice them by boycotting, right now for a couple hours, boycotting taking any people from the airport and picking them up. Now, we've spoken to some drivers. You hear them chanting now 80-20. That's the kind of split of the fare they want to see. But, the airport is expecting hundreds of thousands of travelers, and they're saying in some cases they get less than 50%, even less than 30% of the fare. I spoke with Lyft driver Deborah Williams, and she gave one recent example from her driving.
I wonder where the person that was using that thing is. I wonder if they got with somebody and they forgot where the chair was. Who knows? Or it's a giveaway.
Officials are being sent in the coming days to Mexico for discussions on that. And this is all happening as the Supreme Court handed down a win to President Biden's leading opponent. Yesterday, the decision was made not to fast-track a claim by former President Trump that he's immune from charges of plotting to overthrow the 2020 election. That now goes back to federal appeals court, which could delay the eventual trial. President Biden weighed in earlier today.
I can't think of one.
The first family is spending the weekend and Christmas Day at Camp David. In Washington, Alexandria Hoff, Fox News.
All right, still to come, some old MARTA cars are getting a...
This week, Fox News on Friday published this video of African men arriving at the southern border, saying only 2 border agents were on the scene to process all of the people you see here. CBP tells the outlet that there have been 45,000 encounters at the border since Monday.
Joe Biden's responsible for all of this.
Monday was the highest day of encounters ever recorded, with 12,600. December is on pace to become the highest month ever. Many say they're heading for sanctuary cities. New York. Chicago. Mexico's president on Friday acknowledged the situation is getting worse.
We will boost as much as we can to help maintain an orderly flow of migrants. Recently, there was an abnormal surge of migrants.
He now says he'll step up efforts on Mexico's southern border with Guatemala and seek agreements to manage higher numbers of immigrants attempting to enter the U.S. Meanwhile, Texas is now reportedly adding anti-climbing technology to its fences in Brownsville. That's by erecting 12-foot-tall fences laced with 3 feet of concertina wire. This comes just days after a court temporarily prohibited the federal government from removing the state's razor wires. And lastly, in New York City, the United Federation of Teachers is suing Mayor Eric Adams. Back in November, Adams warned of budget cuts for city services.
Well, it's going to be extremely painful for New Yorkers, and that is why we continue to say we need help.
The mayor now wants to cut $500 million from education in
close
order
the
to
border,
deal with the
you
influx
dummy.
of illegal immigrants. Ariane Pastar, NTD News.
$9 million to study cats on treadmills. NTD's Emma Shi has more.
Senator Rand Paul's annual Festivus report highlights $900 billion in what it calls government waste. Notable items: Barbie doll photos used as ID to get COVID relief funds. The AI system thought they were real people. $200 million given to famous music artists during COVID. $2.7 million to study Russian cats running on a treadmill.
The most egregious circumstance is our quantification of the 20 largest federal agencies. They admit to $236 billion worth of mistakes and improper payments last year.
Adam Andrzejewski is the founder of OpenTheBooks.com, a nonprofit dedicated to auditing government spending. Senator Paul put 2 items from Open the Books in his Festivus report, one being $236 billion worth of improper federal payments. the other being $3.8 million sent to the University of Pennsylvania to investigate COVID misinformation. Andrzejewski says stopping Congress from bankrupting the country starts with local governments.
We need to start where we live and reform our school districts, our municipalities, our townships, our counties. If we start there, eventually the movement will hit Washington, D.C., and will preserve the greatest nation ever conceived in the history of the world.
Other notable items: the government paid $38 million to dead people, $89 million worth of military vehicle engines improperly stored outdoors for 3 years. This rendered the engines useless. $12.6 million worth of hydraulic transmissions, also improperly stored outside, ruined. $68 million worth of tank treads, also left outside, also ruined. And $6 million to boost tourism to Egypt. Paul says Congress has spent over $100 million on Egyptian tourism so far. Emma Shi, NTD News.
My God.
Coming up, as holiday travel.
This is in 2024. Nice of them, isn't it? For every $3, they take 2.
Laura Lynch tonight. She was one of the founding members of the Chicks. Authorities in Texas say.
Tell us more about the order and how it could impact Trump's legal schedule.
Good evening to you, Steve. So, order by the High Court actually is very simple. It has 1 page, 1 sentence, and it's a very simple and straight denial of Special Counsel Jack Smith's request to basically ask the Supreme Court to directly weigh in and circumvent the lower appellate court, and also jump in to decide on the issue of whether former President Trump has presidential immunity as he claims for his actions surrounding the 2020 election. And Jack Smith, in asking the Supreme Court to do that, says that it's an urgent decision needed on an important constitutional question, adding that to prevent any delays to Trump's trial, which is scheduled for March 4th, 2024. And Trump, meanwhile, has been criticizing the trial date, which is a day before Super Tuesday, decrying election interference. His team also this week accused Jack Smith of trying to rush to decide the issues with reckless abandon. And now with today's order, it means that the case will now go through the normal appealing process, which is through the D.C. Circuit Appellate Court here. And also it means that original trial date scheduled for March 4th could well be upended. And the oral arguments for the lower court here is scheduled for January 19th. But no matter who wins here in the lower court, we can expect either side to appeal to the Supreme Court, which will ultimately still have to weigh on this question, just not in Jack Smith manner, not expedited, but in a normal appealing process, which is what Trump would like to see because the trial date will now be postponed. Steve.
So, Iris, the chances of having a Trump trial right before Super Tuesday, which seemed to have been the plan, does seem to have been upended now. So tell us about the potential impact this may have on the 2024 election.
So a New York Times poll shows that more than 80% of Trump supporters say that they agree that a lot of these allegations and trials and indictments against Trump are politically motivated. But the same poll also shows that over a quarter of these Trump supporters also think that they might not support Trump anymore as the Republican presidential candidate if he's actually convicted of any of these alleged crimes. So that really highlights the importance of Trump's team's strategy here in trying to delay these trials beyond potentially the 2024 elections, and today's order definitely might help Trump when it comes to the presidential election here. Steve.
NTD's Iris Tao reporting for us live in front of the Supreme Court. Thank you, Iris. This year was a historic one for Congress, from the ouster of House Speaker Kevin McCarthy to Vice President Kamala Harris breaking the record for tie-breaking votes in the thinly divided Senate. And next year already setting up to be even bumpier, with many high-priority items kicked down the road. Here's NTD's congressional correspondent Melina Wisecup with hits and misses from this year and what lawmakers still have to tackle in the year ahead.
Back to January of 2023, an embattled Kevin McCarthy takes the gavel. He went through 15 rounds of voting on the House floor, only to resign from Congress now after he was ousted from his speakership post.
Well, I'll be departing the House at the end of this year.
Speaker Mike Johnson now dealing with an even slimmer majority after Republicans kicked out one of their own.
This is bullying.
That slim majority has proven crippling for Republicans, who have yet to pass their annual spending bills. Democrats, meanwhile.
Well, this is interesting. Shooting and everything.
Deal with issues like climate change, racism, inequality, and gun control. It is called ESG.
We are giving up our lives so that the Chinese Communist Party can survive and thrive.
It needs it. It really does.